Welcome everyone to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill. This week's topic is an exciting one. Felix Auger Aliassime has been on my radar since Umag last year when he beat Andrei Rublev. That's when I declared, this guy's legit. This young fella is going to be very, very special. And I've just kind of been patiently waiting since then for Felix to really make his breakthrough. Well, that breakthrough was last week in Rio De Janeiro. In the first round, he played Fabio Fognini. He beat him handedly. Next, he played Cristian Garin, Chilean, very strong on clay. Beat him in straights. In the next round, he beat young Spaniard Jaume Munar, who at this stage in his career is a clay court specialist, but he's going to be a very formidable clay court player in the future. He beat him in straights. In the semifinals, he played Pablo Cuevas, in my opinion, a top 25 caliber player on clay courts, and he beat him in 3 sets. In the final, he finally faltered to Laszlo Djere, the Serbian who came into that match outside the top 100, and due to this run in Rio, I believe he's now in the top 50, maybe the top 40. He made a huge leap, as did Felix. Felix jumped up 44 spots. What was his ranking before? I can't see. He moved up 44 spots, and now he's ranking number 60. So you guys can do the math, because I am awful at math. Huge week for Felix Auger Aliassime. For this video, I want to just take some time to thoroughly evaluate FAA, just like I did one other time on this show. That was after Barcelona, when Stefanos Tsitsipas made his final run. He introduced himself to the world. He beat Dominic Thiem on a clay court, got everyone's attention, lost badly in the final to Rafa Nadal, but similarly, I evaluated Tsitsipas and vowed to do that again if more young players make breakthroughs that we haven't seen before. This is what I'm going to do. I do it kind of in a report card style, or I did so with Tsitsipas, and I'm going to do the same kind of thing for FAA here. Let's go back, just for fun, and take a look at how I graded Tsitsipas. Now, at this point, I had only seen him play 2 matches. Think about that. And now, now it's got to be close to, 30 matches I've seen Stefanos Tsitsipas in. And obviously following, that's not counting, highlights and following results. Tsitsipas has been on the radar now for what feels like a long time. But at this point, I graded Stefanos Tsitsipas. It had only been 2 matches. So let's see how accurate we got here. His forehand, I gave an A. That's the highest grade he got out of any of the categories: forehand, backhand, serve, movement, volleys, and mental. His forehand got the highest grade. So that I got right. I was able to recognize right away that his forehand's his best shot, and I gave it an A. At this point, maybe it deserved an A+, because it's really one of the better shots in tennis right now. His backhand, I gave a B. If I could do it again, I would either give it a B or a B-, because that's the weakness of his game, is the backhand side. His serve, I gave a B, and that's probably a little too low. That was probably my worst grade on this report card, is I gave Stefanos's backhand a B, his serve a B, and I should have gotten a B+, maybe an A-. I actually think if I could grade it right now, compared to the rest of the players on tour, I would give Tsitsipas' serve an A-. That was the biggest miss by me. Didn't get that right. Movement, B+, pretty accurate. Big guy, so not the best mover, but for his size, pretty good. Volleys, C-, maybe a little harsh, but not a great volleyer. Maybe I'd bump that up to a C. Mental, A-. I thought I liked what I saw from him mentally, and I still like what I see from him mentally. Maybe I'd bump that up to an A at this point, because I think he does have a champion's mentality, and I talked about that a lot throughout his run in Australia. So pretty close. I think I did pretty well with Tsitsipas. Forehand an A, backhand a B, serve B, movement B+, volleys C-, mental A-. Not bad. Again, I underestimated his serve, but I think for the most part, I got things pretty close. Let's jump into Felix. This is the thumbnail, debuting on the prestigious Monday Match Analysis thumbnail. An honor for Felix, I'm sure. Let's start on this report card. All right, so there's your categories, and we start with his forehand. By the way, comment response coming a little bit later. I'll also take a look at the draws. Really strong fields in Dubai and Acapulco this week. So I'll take a quick look at those draws. I'll do comment response, and that'll be the show after Felix. Felix's forehand is really good. It's a very strong shot. As you just saw flash on your screen, I gave it an A-, or I give it an A-. It's a shot that he likes to hit with an open stance. I like his footwork. He gets in good position. He runs around his backhand often. He gets a lot of RPM on it. It's very snappy. He has a live arm. It's a compact shot, and it jumps off the court, especially a clay court. It's technically sound, and it's got a lot of firepower. He can do some serious damage with it, and he can do it from the back of the court. Also, he's able to find, with his RPM, with the spin that he generates, he finds good angles. Especially, I think he's able to find really good inside-out angles, even more so than the cross-court angles. He's also pretty good at hitting it in the mid-court. So when he has to step into the court and deal with short balls, I think he deals with his forehand pretty well. And that requires a lot of precision. So the forehand is a strength. The forehand's a really good shot. The backhand isn't quite as strong. What's really good about the backhand is it's right up there with the forehand when it comes to firepower. So Felix can step into his backhand and take it down the line. He can take it cross court, and he can hit it really hard, really heavy. I mean, he can really hurt you with his two-handed backhand. That's why it gets a high grade. It gets the B+. What the backhand doesn't have is the same kind of precision that the forehand has. I believe he makes too many errors on his backhand side. I think he makes too many errors on his forehand side right now as well. I want to talk about that as an overarching theme with FAA, is that he needs to learn that elite players aren't generous on the court. And he gave Laszlo Jeddah, I think he says it. It's a tough name to pronounce. He gave Jeddah too many gifts. I think close to 60, if not above 60, unforced errors. Way too many, not to mention 9 double faults. That number I believe I remember exactly. 9 double faults, 60 unforced errors. Way too many gifts. And he'll learn that if he wants to be a champion, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you can't put enough balls in the court, you don't have a chance. So his forehand is an A-. It would be higher if it was more consistent. His backhand is a B+. It's lacking the precision. So I think in the mid-court, he struggles a little bit more. He's better from the back. Once he has to kind of step into the court, I think he doesn't have great feel for it. He doesn't have great feel for his slice backhand yet. He doesn't defend as well on his backhand, I think, especially when he's trying to slice it. And sometimes I don't really know if he knows exactly where he's putting the backhand. Sometimes I think it's just he's not placing that shot with as much precision as he'd like. So that's why the backhand's a B+. But that's pretty good. And again, with all of the negatives that I just talked about with his backhand, it's a very strong backhand, which is technically sound, has a lot of potential and a lot of upside. And he projects as a very strong offensive player because neither wing is an escape valve. Both wings he can do damage on. Both wings he can hurt you down the line and cross court. Serves an A-. It's one of the strengths of Felix's game. It is a technical beauty. I mean, the timing, the fluidity, the toss is consistent, everything. It's a beautiful looking serve. And he gets a lot of aces. He was able to hit through this clay court all week. It's not easy to get a lot of easy points, to get a lot of free points on a clay court, and Felix was able to do that. He's got a really big first serve. On his second serve, he generates a lot of kick, a lot of topspin, but for some reason, and I'm not sure why, he double faults all the time. It kind of reminds me of Dominic Thiem. Thiem double faults a lot as well. but he gets so much topspin on the serve. Those two things shouldn't go together, but for these two players, they do. I'm not exactly sure why. Again, consistency. The serve would be higher than an A minus, but you got to get it in the service box. And that's the only thing that Felix is missing here. But it's a beautiful serve. I want to take a look, and I actually meant to take a look at this after talking about his backhand, but let's take a look at Felix's consistency and one of the reasons why it might be lacking. This is a clip or some screenshots from the final against Jeddah, and Jeddah hits a strong forehand down the line here. It's going to put Felix on the run. Felix is backtracking, trying to get in right position, and he doesn't really get there in time because it was a really strong shot by Jeddah. So FAA is going to resort to a footwork, a technical, a way to kind of deal with defensive footwork, and that's he's going to jump diagonally backwards as he hits this ball. And that's a useful technique, especially on clay. When the ball kicks up high and you're on the run, and you're trying to get it more at the level that you want it, it's a popular technique to use to jump backwards diagonally as you hit the ball and to kind of you lean back, you jump backwards, and you put loft under the ball. Clay court technique, a perfectly usable defensive footwork technique. Felix uses it here. So you see all of his momentum. You see he explodes off the court backwards and diagonal, and he's going to put good loft on this ball. The problem is this is a defensive shot. Where I highlighted in blue on the court, that needs to be Felix's target. He needs to focus on margin and he needs to focus on depth. But look what happens here. Felix misses this ball outside the doubles alley, and you need to take my word on this. He hit the strings. He didn't even shank this ball. He hit the strings, and he missed it outside the doubles alley. What that tells me is that Felix's target was wrong on this shot. Felix didn't have a good understanding of where he should have been aiming here. He was going for the sideline. He was going to inject angle on this shot, where there's no reason to try to inject angle into this shot. There's no reason to aim for the sideline. You should really be aiming for the baseline. So I think that has to do, that's an example of Felix's shot selection possibly getting in the way of his consistency. I noticed one common theme was that his patience wasn't very strong in the match against Jeddah. He was mainly dictating the match on his own terms and going for his shots and playing offensive tennis. And there's nothing wrong with that. FAA can play great offensive tennis and great defensive tennis. He needs to learn how to be a little bit more patient. Movement is an A. He's a great athlete, and he should become a better athlete. And the fact, by the way, it's not just his movement, and his lateral movement's really good. His footwork is very impressive to me. But what's also impressive is how heavy he's able to hit the ball, and that's part of not movement, but that's part of his athleticism and his explosiveness. For him to be this young and to already be generating the kind of pace that he gets on his ground strokes when he's on the run, that's a lot of upper body strength, that's a lot of leg strength to be getting the pace on his serve that he gets. For an 18-year-old, that's quite unique, and that's why Felix is able to do things at a younger age than most players are able to do on the modern tour. By the way, the Masters 500 tournament that Felix just made the final of, he became the youngest Masters 500. Why am I calling it Masters? The youngest 500 level finalist in the history of that level. And 500 events have been around since 2009. His volleys are a B. He can go to the net. He is a threat up there. I saw him make some good volleys. I saw him make some poor volleys. So it gets a B. And then lastly, mental, I kind of put a question mark, or I put NA for not available, because I'm not really sure. it's very impressive that all throughout the week he was able to play on stadium courts. He's 18 years old, and he was able to handle the pressure and play good tennis. But in the final, you saw, I think, the moment get the better of him, and a good amount of nervousness, but also I thought, and I need to get to know him better when it comes to his mental game, but I thought he was a little bit bottled up. It took him a while to show positive emotion, and I think that maybe that would have helped him get some of his nerves out, and I didn't see that. But it's hard to make a judgment on him mentally so far. I'll give you some general words on Felix. Why do I think he's so promising? It's the package. First of all, it's the well-roundedness. What's he terrible at? What's he really bad at? I can't think of anything. Where most of the top players have holes. I'll just rattle off some of the next geners right now. Coric doesn't have a great forehand. Tsitsipas doesn't have a great backhand. Medvedev isn't great when he's not great at generating his own pace. Khachanov gets rushed on his forehand, doesn't defend his forehand side well, and is too inconsistent. Shapovalov makes too many errors, double faults too much, doesn't make enough first serves. I'm having trouble thinking of Felix Auger Aliassime's weakness. Not weakness, because everyone has a weakness. What I'm having trouble with is thinking of something he's bad at. Who are some other people where it's hard to think of what they're bad at? It's hard to think of what Novak Djokovic and Rafa Nadal and Roger Federer and Andy Murray are bad at. You can think of weaknesses, Federer's backhand, but guess what? When you compare it to the rest of the tour, when it's at its best, when it's going well, it's a good backhand, considering what he can do with his slice and his drop shots and his craftiness, and then also just his regular topspin backhands. Pretty good. What's Rafa's weakness? A lot of the times his return can be a weakness on a faster court. Well, compare that to most other players, his return's pretty good. What's Djokovic's weakness? He's very predicated around being well-rounded and not having weaknesses. But maybe Djokovic's weakness is lacking maybe generating offense from the middle of the court, maybe. I mean, Djokovic isn't really bad at anything. But Felix is very similar to that. It's hard for me to think of what he's bad at. It's just really difficult. And that comes from being a great mover and showing great potential defensively, showing great potential offensively, having a good serve, having a good forehand, having a good backhand, and showing some promise at the net, showing some promise with having good hands. The guy seems very bulletproof, and it's very important to be an elite athlete. If you're going to be a Grand Slam champion, it's extremely important to be an elite athlete. And Felix appears to be that as well. So I'm all in. I'm really excited. I think that he will be really, 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 really good. Pretty much as good as any of the... He's younger than the next gen crop, but I think he's maybe better than all of them. Not right now. He's not there yet. But most of these guys are 20, and I think Felix Auger Aliassime in 2 years will be above and beyond where a lot of the next geners are right now. That's my prediction. Let's take a quick look at these draws this week. Transitioning here. And then we'll get into comment response. So this is Dubai. Roger Federer's in the draw. It's weird to see him as the 2 seed and Kei Nishikori as the 1 seed, but that's where we stand. This isn't completely updated because Nishikori, for example, already beat Benoit Paire. Gael Monfils already beat Marin Cilic, and oh my god, did he look impressive in that one. Coric is in this draw. Basilashvili beat Karen Khachanov already. Bautista Agut is in this draw, who's had a really strong start to the year. So the guys I would look out for right now is Tsitsipas, who has not played well after the Australian Open, so he needs to pick it up a little bit here. Kei Nishikori has played good tennis early on. Roger Federer is obviously going to be the big draw here. All eyes will be on him. His biggest threat in the bottom half is probably Bautista Agut. So and then there's Coric as well, but who has obviously beaten Roger Federer twice. So those are kind of the two big threats in Federer's draw. I think Federer has a pretty good chance to make the semis or the finals. We'll see what kind of form he's in. I would say watch out for Gael Monfils the way he's playing, plain and simple. Oh, Rob Berankis beat Daniil Medvedev. So that's the worst loss that Medvedev has had in a really long time. Berankis, the qualifier. Not sure where he's ranked these days, but that was quite shocking. In the top half, my gut is saying Monfils in the final. Again, that's just kind of what I'm thinking, just looking at how well Monfils is playing and looking at his draw. So I think maybe a Federer-Monfils final. Let's take a look at Acapulco. Rafa is in Acapulco. Just give me a second to pull this up because it's hard for me to read it. I've heard some rumblings about Rafa not being quite healthy coming in, so I don't know. I don't know about what's going on there, but that's what's swirling in the rumor mill. Alex Zverev is on the bottom half, and he's kind of desperate for some 2019 results, so we'll see what he can do. He'll probably face de Minaur. This draw, I think, is not as strong as the Dubai draw. I think there's less depth here. On the top half, like Rafa's biggest threat is Wawrinka, and I do think that Wawrinka also made the final in Rotterdam. So is he gonna make another run? I mean, obviously Nadal's the favorite. So I think if Nadal's healthy, he has a good chance to win this tournament because he owns Sasha Zverev. There's no one really in the bottom half who Sasha Zverev should lose to. I mean, there's Schwartzman, who was just playing on clay courts. That's always tough to just kind of flip that switch. There's de Minaur, and Rafa has destroyed de Minaur in both of their meetings. Kyrgios is not looking healthy and not looking motivated right now. So I think Wawrinka or Nadal wins this tournament, one or the other. All right, comment response. Let's get into it. Kevin Joel says, "What's up with your boy, Karen Khachanov these days?" Khachanov has struggled immensely, and it's been just not being able to find any consistency, making a lot of errors. I think people just rushing him on his forehand side, and I got to watch more because he's losing so early that it's tough for me to watch because, I mean, I'm generally... the best way to ensure that I watch you is if you make semifinals and finals and I'm watching on the weekend and preparing for this show. It's sometimes tough on a Monday with my busy schedule to watch first round matches. So the reality of it is Khachanov has made it tough for me to even see him, but I've been following how poor his results have been, and from what I've seen, it's the classic kind of issue with Khachanov. His game does have holes, but I can't speak much on it. But definitely something to monitor. Here's the good news for Khachanov. He is not defending a lot of points. So that's something that he can take solace in, is the points that he's defending are mainly in the second half, where he's starting to make these runs. So he's not going to drop in the rankings if he doesn't do well here in the first half, but he needs to just pick it up by the second half. I also think that he should be a pretty good clay court player. He likes the high bounce. His forehand, it should kick up a lot. His serve kicks up a lot. These are all good things on the clay, and he should be able to hit through the clay courts. And it's good when he has time. He needs time. So I actually think most people think offensive players won't be good on clay. I think Karen Khachanov should be pretty good on clay, but let's see. It also has to do a lot with movement, and that's hard to predict. Jose Marino. Hello, Gill. I just heard a Rafa interview where he says that he is not chasing Roger's 20 slams, and you know that Novak has said that his target is to win more slams than Roger. For sure, that could work motivation for Novak, but also I think he just added a good amount of pressure to his Grand Slam matches until he gets his 21st crown. What do you think? I think Djokovic feeds off that pressure. I think he likes that pressure. I think he's being honest, and I think that's the way he probably motivates himself. So, I was glad Djokovic said that, because I think that if he didn't say that, he probably would just be kind of lying. And so it was good to see him just be honest here. As for Rafa saying he's not chasing Roger's 20 slams, it's interesting because I don't really believe him. And I think this is a case of Rafa just being friendly and trying to be kind of humble, and not that Djokovic isn't humble by just telling the truth. I just think humble isn't the right word. Modest. Rafa likes to be modest, and this is just Rafa being insecure and modest. So I think it's just their personalities. And Terry, let's see if you will answer my question, because you never answer my questions. I'm starting to give up soon. So in Terry, your questions are too long to read on air, and that's why a lot of the time I don't answer them, is because I can't spend 3 minutes of the show reading your question, which is not always question. It's a lot of comment. It's like an article almost. So that's why. So if you really want me to read it, you need to make it shorter, and then maybe post another comment for other stuff. What is your opinion about those who say that Federer won his slams in an easier era than his top rivals, Nadal and Djokovic? I have my opinion with arguments to prove, which you can see in this video below. Now I want to hear what is your opinion. So let's see if I'll answer the question. Okay. Didn't have time to watch the video. I'll try to check that out in Terry. My opinion on the weak era argument. First of all, it's silly, because there's nothing a player can do about their competition. And the only thing you can do about your competition is beat them consistently. And Federer did that from 2004 to about 2009, especially on fast court. So, excluding Roland Garros, Roger Federer was incredibly consistent in making it be it's a consistency that showed that not only was he better than his rivals, Marat Safin, Leighton Hewitt, Andy Roddick, Fernando Gonzalez, Nikolai Davydenko. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing people. Not only was he better than these rivals, it wasn't even close. And that's all you can ask for Roger Federer to do. The weak era argument is silly, because I don't know what Federer did what he needed to do with those circumstances. Now, the only thing you can possibly do is use it as a tool to devalue the slam count as an argument used in the GOAT debate, which I know I talked about last week a little bit. So it can be an argument against the slam count, but it cannot be an argument against Roger Federer's greatness as a player. Second, was it a weak era at all? It's tough, because I don't think the window that was weak, and I think it certainly was a little bit weaker just with the absence of a strong Novak Djokovic, and then Andy Murray took a little while as well. I believe that it was a very short window, and that Federer did not have a lot of time to win majors over a lot of the rivals that I previously mentioned. In fact, Rafa Nadal made his breakthrough on clay courts in 2005. Federer wasn't winning majors for very long, right? Federer had just begun to climb up the rankings and reach world number one and begin to become the player that he was. Rafa Nadal was already on the scene as a great clay court player. You can't hold it against Roger Federer that Rafa took a long time to mature as a fast court player, which he did eventually. How could you hold that against Roger Federer? So Rafa was right there, one of the greatest players of all time. That's not a weak era. That's not a weak era. That's my opinion. I'm not sure, and Terry, sorry, I don't know where you stand, but I'll try to watch your video, but that's where I stand. Who will win Roland Garros, Wimbledon, US Open? Will Zverev win a slam? Will Dominic Thiem win a Grand Slam? Will Nishikori ever win a Grand Slam? Will Tsitsipas and Coric win a Masters this year? Wow, throwing it all at me. Roland Garros right now, top of the power ranking is Djokovic. I'm not going to pick Wimbledon and US Open. What was my preseason pick for Wimbledon US Open? Do I even remember? Wimbledon, I will say Djokovic. I don't know US Open. I don't know. This is weird question to answer. I don't know. I don't want to predict that right now. Will Zverev win a Grand Slam? No. I've maintained no since the beginning of the year. Thiem win a Grand Slam? I think it's very likely if Rafa, if he doesn't have to go through Rafa and Novak Djokovic, if let's say one of them is unhealthy, if let's say one of them gets upset, a combination of the two, these things have a legitimate chance of happening. I know we like to think that everything is going to go as planned, and the two best clay court players right now are definitely going to just come through Roland Garros unscathed. As much as we like to assume that's going to happen, the probability that doesn't is very real, and I do strongly feel that Dominic Thiem is the next guy who's right there and would be the favorite to win Roland Garros. I think mentally, physically, has what it would take to win this slam. If something were to happen to one of them, two of them, or both of them, that's a good position to be in for Dominic Thiem. I also think the US Open conditions suit him great, and if he can progress his game, I think he'll have a good chance at the US Open as well. Will Nishikori ever win a Grand Slam? I don't think so, because I don't think he gets enough out of his serve. So until he can get more out of his serve, I think it takes too much energy exertion for Nishikori to win best-of-5 set matches over the course of 2 weeks. So I lean no, that Nishikori will not win a slam. And I love him as a player. It's unfortunate. Rooting for him. Will Tsitsipas and Coric win a Masters this year? Coric, yes. Tsitsipas, yes. I don't know. That's again very tough to predict. When you talked about the new prototype, Stefano Desperati says, he's finally arrived. Felix Auger Aliassime, he can dictate with both swings. Correct. He's also great from the defensive side. I agree. He'll push tennis to the new level. I could agree. He's the chosen one. I could agree. Now, here's where I will challenge you. New prototype. How about the old prototype? No one reminds me of the Big Four quite like Felix Auger Aliassime does when it comes to baseline play. Because the Big Four all share, what they all share in common is normally when they play their opponents, they're better both offensively and defensively. And that's the one thing I see in Felix. That's what I see in Felix that I think is so special about him, is normally he has the potential to be better at offense and defense and to do both at an elite level. So the only thing that I'm questioning is the choice of word new prototype, because I think that's almost the old prototype of what makes a Grand Slam champion over the last decade. Hey Gill, what do you think about Zverev's chances for the rest of 2019? Does he need to win a slam for his own mental state? Will Borg hang around long if he can't win one? Also, is Australian Open the best Djokovic we've seen? How can he be beaten in 2019? Australian Open, interesting. Is that the best Djokovic we've ever seen? Physically, not quite 2011. Um, I would say no. I still think 2011 because I think the cardio in 2011 was probably just a notch higher. So I think if 2011 Djokovic played that Australian Open Djokovic, I think 2011 would just outlast him. That's it. He would just outlast him. From a tennis perspective, as good as he's ever been. Just errorless, bulletproof tennis from the baseline. Amazing defense, amazing counter offense, putting the ball exactly where he wants it, and, clobbering short balls, punishing his two-handed backhand. As good as it gets with his ball striking, I think 2011 Djokovic would outlast him. Where are we? We are on... Okay, comment number 7. Hey Gill, really enjoyed your content and passionate presenting. Thank you. What do you make of Juan Martín Del Potro's return at Delray Beach? Would he make any impact Indian Wells and Miami? Del Po has a lot of points to defend at Indian Wells and Miami, and at Delray I watched a fair bit of him in his match against who did he lose to? I'm forgetting who he lost to. Whoever he lost to, I watched most of that match, and Del Potro just was not moving well at all in that match. Ugh, it's really frustrating me that I can't remember who he lost to. So Del Potro was dealing with knee problems. His wrist looked good. His two-handed backhand looked really good. But his knee was just not at 100% yet. So do I think he'll be ready for Indian Wells and Miami? Unfortunately, no, I do not. Which, again, it's tough for him because he has a lot of points to defend. Could you talk about the Argentina Open? That was Buenos Aires. Schwartzman and team played a great match, and Cecchinato played perfectly during the entire week. Yes, thank you for asking this. Schwartzman and team did play a great match. It was mostly on team's racket. Schwartzman was doing mostly defending, and team made too many errors ultimately. But one thing that I noticed was Schwartzman was kind of lollipopping in his second serve. What I mean by that is he was just hitting really slow second serves, and team was not returning well enough at all. I mean, he was missing so many second serve returns. I couldn't believe it. And he was standing so far back, waiting for the ball to drop and kind of scraping it off the ground. So I hope Dominic Thiem learned a lesson in this match that when someone is hitting second serves like Schwartzman, you need to move in. I mean, you cannot, there's no excuse. You need to move in and take the ball either on the rise or at least not wait until the ball's dropping down low. And he's hitting it below waist level. So it was bizarre, just really poor second serve returning by Dominic Thiem. Couldn't take advantage of Schwartzman's serving. And Schwartzman, so good from the baseline, great movement, great consistency, great trading by Diego, penetrating backhands at times. And what Cecchinato did was Cecchinato didn't let Schwartzman, or basically made Schwartzman play defense all day. Never let him get on the attack. And once again, I thought it was the return that told the story of the match. Cecchinato punishing Diego Schwartzman's serves. Schwartzman was not starting points on the right foot on his serve. Really tough position to be in. And Cecchinato was playing brutally heavy attacking tennis, which he can do. I mean, he's a really big hitter, especially on clay when he has time to take these big cuts. Schwartzman needed to try to take the offense a little bit and was never able to do that because on the return, he wasn't able to, in my opinion, again, playing way too far back on the second serve return, just like Dominic Thiem did in the match prior. Schwartzman needed to adjust. He needed to move up on the second serve. He was giving Cecchinato too much time to set up for his first ground stroke after his serve. Got to move up. Schwartzman didn't move up. Thiem didn't move up. They both lost, in my opinion, because they couldn't adjust their return positions. For Cecchinato, really good serving and great returning, and really just bullied Diego Schwartzman. this is getting long, but gotta finish them. I said I'd make it up for you guys for not getting it up last night, Monday. Hi, Gill. More of a general inquiry here. I'm from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and obviously a big Felix fan. However, one of my friends that works as a tennis coach has heard through the branches that Felix had a heart transplant when he was younger, explaining palpitations during his matches. Yes, and then he had to retire at the U.S. Open against Shapovalov. I do remember that. It's not the first time he had to retire for similar issues. I'm just curious as to know if you had any information on the subject. Personally, I couldn't find anything on the net, whether it was from French or English sources. Thanks again for your videos. I really appreciate them. Cedric. Thanks, Cedric. I don't have anything more than has been explained to me, and I learned mostly about it once when that incident happened at the U.S. Open. And I'm not sure how it'll affect him. And again, I think I'll make this into a general point. I mean, I think tennis needs more storytelling, and I want to, and I'm not even close to this point in my life, in my career, but at some point I want to be in a position where I can reach out to players and I can give you guys these kind of answers. Can anyone beat Djokovic at Roland Garros? Nadal will be psychologically disadvantaged against Novak. Team has been inconsistent and injury prone. Will he be 100% before the French, or is it a no-lay slam? First of all, I'm confident that Team figures it out before the French Open. I also think it's important to note that not all clay courts are created equal, and Dominic Thiem has done, regardless of his up and down results leading up to the French Open, he has done now at least 2 years in a row really well at the French. Nadal, in terms of the psychological problem against Novak, Nadal needs to hope, that he plays Djokovic before they meet, if they were to meet at Roland Garros, because it's important for Nadal, in my opinion, that his last memory of being on the court with Djokovic is not that Australian Open final. I think that's important. So we'll see if that happens. If that doesn't happen, that'll all shape what the ultimate result of all of this is. Last one. Hi, Gill. How do you see Nadal post-match conference after Australian Open final? He seems optimistic that with more matches under his belt, he can reach a high level. Do you think he can beat Novak before clay season begins, and how will his serve help him on clay? His serve, honestly, won't help him as much on clay because it'll get neutralized. I think serve simply not as important on clay. I can make that broad, sweeping generalization, I think, without much hesitation. And I think, as I said, it's important that he plays Rafa or that he plays Djokovic before Roland Garros. He should hope for that. More matches under his belt. Yeah, I think Nadal needs this. I think Federer needs this. I think it's very hard, and I want to see what effect this has on Federer. I think that Federer should play more. If that's okay with his family life and his body and making him happy. At this point, Federer should do whatever makes him happy. But when it comes to tennis, I think that he should experiment with playing more matches, because last year he just didn't seem match tough mentally. So I think he should play more matches. And then Rafa in the Australian Open final the way the nerves overcame him, it could be a lot of things, but I wonder if that also has to do with how many matches he's playing. So there you have that. All right. It was a really long one. Let's get out of here. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.